So instead of being outside and enjoying the fantastic day, I'm going to be working on doing a pressure test of this oil pipe. So just as a quick recap, this is the oil feed from the tank. It's hidden through the inside of this water jacket, and then it goes to the inlet of the oil pump. So I've blocked some of the components off so that I can fill the coolant part of it up with water and put in it a fitting to connect it up to a air regulator so I can pressurize it and test it. So I've got the test rig on. I've got it pressurized to about 20 psi, so it's a little bit higher than what it would be the cooling system, and I'm inspecting everything for leaks. Given enough time, you can start to see little beads of water forming across the seam here, which means that there's a crack in the weld. I'd love to be able to say that I could see evidence of water getting inside this pipe, because there are a couple of segments of pipe which are welded together, so it is possible that there could be a fracture inside, but unfortunately it's not looking like that's the case, and that all we've got is just a leak of coolant going from the outside. So yeah, you can really see it. Not very big, but it's enough. I got Glenn to machine up some plugs for me so that I can go around and plug up these extra coolant lines which are not necessary. They're really only needed for Arctic operations. Then we'll start putting it back together and continue doing troubleshooting. Put a dab of sealant on there, trusty watchmaker's hammer. One down. One of the reasons I'm using a aluminium plug and an aluminium fitting is that they both have approximately the same expansion coefficient, so as it gets hot and cold it should maintain that nice sort of interference fit. Taking a few minutes now to get ready for the ordeal ahead of reinstalling all the bits that I've taken off. So the various hoses that need to be up, plug them up and also mark them so that if at some point in the future the next unfortunate sod that works on this thing needs to put it back to how it was, they know where the blockages are. This hull fitting, I bronzed that up earlier, and same thing with this thing. So yeah, at this point I've got to give a word of thanks to Master Milo. He was kind enough to hook me up with a set of workshop manuals for the BMP, and he actually had a very good term for what this hose is called. He called it a coaxial hose. So there you go. I'm sure you can appreciate that, yeah, taking things apart's a hell of a lot easier because you've got gravity helping you with a lot of stuff. I'm sort of particularly concerned with this pipe because I've got to get a lot of things started first before I can get the other bits and pieces in. But anyway, let's see how we go.
You're gonna fight me, aren't you? Just as easy as that.
You'll be probably asking about looking for the actual source of how the oil's getting into the cooling system. Well, bolted to the back of the oil pump is actually the coolant pump, and it shares a common drive shaft in here, and I think there's one or two oil seals in here, so you know, it doesn't take a mechanical genius to work out that that's a possible place for oil to migrate. And if that oil seal is leaking, while it doesn't look impossible to get the back of the water pump off, it also doesn't look real easy. So anyway, we'll take it one step at a time. Put 20 litres of oil in the tank, and surprise, surprise, it's managed to be leak free. Got Silvio here busy helping out, retapping some of the threads in the upper deck, because we're going to try and get this thing back together by the end of the week. I'll take care of a little bit of housekeeping and label some of the gauges and switches and controls. If you haven't worked it out by now, I love labeling stuff, because quite often I had trouble remembering what I did 5 minutes ago, let alone 5 months. I've started to learn a few things. One of them is there's actually a control here. Pulling this lever up, it opens a valve in the water pump. You have to operate this device, push it down and turn it, which opens up a valve in the sort of watertight part of the hull. You push down and turn it. So the combination of operating the lever, pushing this down, starts the coolant draining. Now that I've got this easy way of draining coolant out of the engine, I'm going to start and run it a few times without water in the engine. I'm not going to get it too hot to damage it, but the plan of attack is that if there is oil leaking past the seal inside the water pump, that oil should in theory fill up this drain pipe, and I should be able to see if there's oil coming out. Time to open the drain mushroom and see what comes out. I've got my specially hermetically clean specimen container. Yeah, did anything come out? Nothing. That's interesting. For the sake of the exercise, I may just tip a bit of water in it and see, perhaps it might float any oil out that's come out of the water pump shaft. But maybe we've got a result here. I'm hoping this would have flushed out any black engine oil that's leaked past the water pump shaft, if that's actually the problem. Let's see. Nothing conclusive. I mean, this could just be residual oil out of the system. There's no fresh black stuff. I've nicked a couple of dishwashing tabs. I'll run a couple of them through the system. So put the engine on full hot wash and then drain it out really carefully. If you want to do this at home, do it carefully, because the dishwasher tabs are pretty caustic, so it's going to be pretty harsh on aluminium components, so make sure you wash it out completely. So that's been running for about 20 minutes and it's got nice and warm, and maybe the dishwashing tablet's doing its magic, but first impressions is that it's looking pretty good in there. You can see sort of a few drops of oil in there, but considering how much residual there was, it's not bad. So I'll put another load through it, heat it up, run it. Let's see what shakes out. Absolute luxury having an auto drain. Beautiful lemon scented coolant. Doesn't get much better than that. So you can see that the last one has actually picked up a bit of oil, but it's still, I mean, it probably looks worse than what it actually is. It's a significant reduction in the amount of oil compared to before. Al fresco with the BMP so that I can run it up, get it nice and hot, and change the coolant a few times without upsetting my co-workers. For those of you that haven't experienced an old Soviet diesel, these things produce a particularly toxic type of exhaust smoke that yeah, efficiency and clean burning is certainly something that wasn't on the top of their priority list. And a quick run through of some of the controls. So I guess the steering tillers, we've got a control here for high and low range, which also affects the radius turn of the steering of the vehicle. The gear shift is here. It's got a bit of an odd sort of shift pattern in that reverse is all the way back and down, and first is all the way back and up. Then neutral position, all the way forward, and up is second, down is third. Within the central position you've got fourth and fifth. Now the gear shift is sort of hydraulically activated, and if you actually stall the engine with it in gear, you can't get the thing out of gear unless you use a special air control down here which sort of blows the tank out of gear. I took a bit of time and resuscitated the air system by cleaning out a few check valves. Thankfully I didn't have to mess around anything to do with this rat's nest here. Most of these controls are to do with the swim system, so that when you activate it, it opens and closes flaps. What that's also enabled me to do is to get the air start system working, because in the operator's manual it makes a big emphasis on you should be starting it both electrically and air at the same time, and you need a minimum of 50 bar of pressure for that to work. It's got a handbrake which looks like a umbrella handle the way it pulls out, and it illuminates this massive warning light which in Slovak basically says release the handbrake, because the handbrake system on the BMP, the original ones anyway, only works on the left hand track. So if you've got the handbrake on and you jump on it in first gear, the thing's going to take off like a demented kangaroo with a cramp in one of its legs, because it's going to pivot right around, and even if you try and use a handbrake as an emergency brake, the thing's going to end up probably doing a few pirouettes if you got enough speed up on it. And then just lastly, there's a couple of warning lights. So red light up here tells you that the gun is to the right hand side, and if this red light here is on, means the gun's to the left side. So there you go. With the BMP, the driver's hatch, without it locked, it just sort of flaps in the breeze, and if you went around a corner it'd probably end up canoeing you in the head. So make sure that that's locked in place. Down here, our friend the vent valve, so we give this a quick flick just to blow out any stuff out of the lines. Master is on. Screw on the hand throttle a bit. Oil pressure, air and electric start. not exaggerating when I say this is a massive amount of fun to drive this thing. It's a real delight actually. What also makes it really fun is the fucking Bronco ride that it's got, so I'm sure the shock absorbers are probably flogged out. As far as the problem goes with the engine, it's not overheating. So I sort of can still, I can see a bit of stuff in the few drops of oil in the header tank, but it's nowhere near as bad as what it was before. I'd love to have the time to be able to strip the water pump off and inspect that and check it a bit more thoroughly, but AusArmour's bearing down on us pretty quickly, and this thing's going to be a real popular vehicle to ride in, I reckon, because of the ride that you get in it. I can probably imagine that back in the day a few squatties lost their lunch riding in this thing. I think we'll put all the covers and hatches and stuff back onto this thing and put it back in the museum, and it's good to go. It'll do AusArmour, it'll do the rides that we need to do, and then we can have a bit more of a look at it later.